Red dirt clings to the shape of a man. He is entirely still. There is no heartbeat thudding against the freshly formed ribs. We have been conditioned to picture a ghost. We imagine an immortal, invisible spark of pure consciousness. Temporarily trapped, in that very day his thoughts perish. Read Ecclesiastes chapter 12. The dust returns to the earth as it was, and the spirit returns to God who gave it. Notice what goes back to God. It is not the Nephesh, it is the Ruach. It is the breath. The divine CPR stops. The air leaves the lungs. Think of a light bulb. You have a glass filament, and you have electricity. When the two combine, you get light. But when you turn off the switch, where does the light go? It does not float up to a celestial realm. It does not exist independently in the wires. The combination is broken. The light simply ceases to be. This is the Hebrew anatomy of death. Dirt plus breath equals a living soul. Subtract the breath. The dirt returns to the ground. The soul is gone. Death is not a relocation. It is a deconstruction. The Greek myth comforts us. It tells us death is an illusion. It whispers that the real you cannot die. It softens the blow of mortality by pretending the body never mattered in the first place. The biblical text offers no such comfort. Death is real. Death is a thief. Death is an enemy tearing a masterpiece apart. If your soul is your living, breathing organism, inside a fragile cage of meat and bone. We think of the human body as a biological rental car, and the soul as the eternal driver. Then a dead body is a dead soul. The prophet Ezekiel says it explicitly in chapter 18, "The soul who sins shall die." In the book of Numbers, the Israelites are commanded not to touch a corpse, but the Hebrew phrase "sitting on the parchment" literally translates as a dead nephesh, a dead soul. When the throat stops swallowing, the soul is dead. When the lungs stop pulling air, the soul is dead. There is no ghost hovering above the bed. There is only dust, waiting in the dark. This sounds completely hopeless. It sounds bleak. It feels like standing on the edge of a terrifying void. If we are just mud and wind, what hope do we actually have? If death completely dismantles our existence, how do we ever live again? The answer does not come from the marble academies of Greece. It comes from a Jewish rabbi in a garden outside, and it involves a rock rolling away. The garden is silent. The limestone is heavy. Inside the tomb, the air is thick with the sharp scent of myrrh, aloes, and dried blood. A body lies on a cold rock slab. It is not an empty shell. It is not a discarded biological rental car. It is the Word made flesh, wrapped in linen, and it is entirely dead. Jesus of Nazareth did not shed his physical form, so a divine spark could escape to a higher realm. According to this framework, the real you is non-physical. The real you is just waiting for the day the heart finally stops beating. The lungs stopped. The throat closed. The nephesh died. He went into the dark exactly as we go into the dark, as a dismantled masterpiece. And then, the wind returns. The same ruach that hovered over the chaotic waters in Genesis. The same breath that rushed into the red dirt in Eden, blows into the cold lungs in the tomb of Joseph of Arimathea. The chest rises. The blood moves. The eyes snap open. The Savior stands up in the dark. He does not resurrect as a phantom. He does not resurrect as an ethereal, glowing spark of pure consciousness. He steps out of the grave with physical scars you can run your fingers across. He steps into the morning light with biological vocal cords that can speak a woman's name. When he suddenly appears in a locked room later that evening, his disciples are terrified. They think they are seeing a ghost. They are defaulting to the exact same Hellenistic myth we still cling to today. They assume they are looking at a disembodied soul floating in the room. And how does Jesus correct their theology? He asks for food. They hand him a piece of broiled fish, and he eats it in front of them. He swallows. His nephesh proves it is alive by doing what a nephesh was created to do. This is the ultimate collision between Athens and Jerusalem. The Greek philosophers looked at the physical world and saw a prison to escape. The Hebrew prophets looked at the physical world and saw a temple to rebuild. So the fleshy cage can open and the ghost can float away into a disembodied eternity. And it makes sense why we read the text that way. The biblical hope is not evacuation. It is resurrection. God did not come down to rescue your invisible spirit from your biological cage. He came down to rescue your physical body from the grave. The resurrection of Jesus is the down payment on the promise that the dirt matters, the breath matters, and the material world is not going to be thrown away into a cosmic incinerator. But if the physical body is actually the site of our salvation, it changes more than just what you believe about the afterlife. It radically alters what you do with your hands tomorrow morning. If you think your soul is a ghost, you will inevitably end up treating your physical life as a staging area, a temporary waiting room. We see this everywhere in the modern landscape. We call it spirituality. But it is actually a subtle form of escapism. We treat our bodies as liabilities to be managed, or decorations to be perfected. And we treat the world around us as something to be ignored while we wait for the real life to start in the clouds. But if you are a Nephesh, if you are a breathing, hungering, physical creature, then your physical reality is not a waiting room. It is the vocation itself. Think about the implications for your daily work. Think about the way you care for your neighbors. Think about the way you treat the environment. It sounds deeply spiritual. It offers a clean, comforting framework for death. But if you look closer at the ancient Hebrew vocabulary, your own health, or the hungry people living just a few blocks from your house, if humanity is meant to float away as disembodied ghosts, then hunger, poverty, and environmental decay don't actually matter in the long run. They are just background noise while we wait for the cage to unlock. But if you are a Nephesh, hunger is an assault on a masterpiece. A body that is starving is a soul that is hurting. A throat that is dry is a Nephesh crying out for the river of life. The Hebrew prophets never told the people to focus on the invisible world while ignoring the brokenness of their own cities. They told them to feed the hungry. They told them to clothe the naked. They told them to seek justice for the oppressed, because they understood that God created a physical world, and He intends to redeem the whole thing, dirt and breath included. This is the phantom debt we owe to a theology that downgraded the body. We have been living like we are, just passing through, apologizing for our physical existence, when, in reality, we were designed to steward it. We act as if the afterlife is a different place, when the Bible describes it as a different quality of physical life. We treat the soul as a secret hidden within us, when the text describes the soul as the entirety of who we are. At the cultural air, the biblical authors were actually breathing at what happens in the text before and after that famous breath you start to see. When we wake up, work, play, eat, and love. You are not a ghost in a shell. You are a work of art made of mud and wind. And that truth is not just a lesson for your head. It is a command for your life. It is the call to love the world, enough to want it to be restored, starting with your own hands, to your own throat, and the very ground you stand on. God breathed into the red dirt of Eden, and the mud became a living soul. A Greek philosopher wrote about a ghost escaping a cage, and the Western world swallowed the myth. A thirsty deer stumbled through a Judean wasteland, and a poet painted the ultimate picture of bodily craving. The ancient oceans swarmed with flashing fins, and the Hebrew text called the animals living souls. The divine breath returns to the Creator in the dark, and the physical masterpiece returns to the dust. A dead rabbi stood up in the cold limestone of a garden tomb, and the material universe received its final guarantee. A resurrected Savior asked his terrified friends for a piece of broiled fish and proved the body was never meant to be abandoned. A reality that the ghost in the machine assumption completely fractures. A soul is not a phantom waiting to abandon your body. Same breath, same dust, one story. But here is the part I keep coming back to. The fish. The sheer, glorious absurdity of that piece of broiled fish in the locked upper room. The creator of the cosmos, having just defeated death itself, steps back into the world of the living and uses his very first hours to chew and swallow. He does not return as a phantom. He does not return as a glowing spark of pure consciousness. He returns as a Nephesh, a throat that can eat, a voice that can speak, a body with scars you can run your physical fingers across. If you are in a season where you feel like your physical life is a distraction from your spiritual life, if you have been taught to hate your body, to ignore its pain, or to treat your daily labor as nothing more than a waiting room for heaven, you do not have to escape your humanity to find the holy. The Creator does not want your disembodied ghost. He wants your hands. He wants your meals. He wants the heavy, breathing, sweating reality of your daily existence. Your body is not a cage. It is a canvas. And may the God who shaped the dust into a masterpiece, it is your body, sustained by the breath of God. To realize what you actually are, you have to unlearn centuries of inherited theology, and who promises to breathe life into the graves once more. Give you the courage to steward your beautiful, fragile soul today. You have to step out of the modern Western worldview and read the text with ancient eyes. Because the moment you understand the Hebrew word sitting silently beneath your English Bible, it changes how you view your physical hands, your daily meals. No warm air rushing through the throat. He is nothing but a meticulously carved sculpture of mud, and the ultimate promise of the resurrection. But the place to start this unraveling is not in the deserts of ancient Israel. To understand how we got the soul so wrong, you have to look at the empire that hijacked the conversation. A man named Plato unrolls a papyrus scroll in an Athenian courtyard. The air smells of olive oil and hot dust. He dips a reed pen into dark ink. He writes an idea that will conquer the Western world. The year is roughly 380 BC. The idea is simple. The idea is elegant. The idea is a complete departure from the Hebrew prophets. Plato argues for dualism, two separate realms, two separate parts of a human being. He looks at the physical world and sees decay. Flesh wrinkles, bones snap, blood spills. The material world is a flawed, temporary shadow, but the invisible world is pure. The mind is perfect. The soul is immortal. According to this Greek framework, your body is a prison. It is a biological cage built to trap a divine spark. The real you is the invisible ghost operating the machinery. Therefore, death is not a tragedy. Death is a jailbreak. Death is the moment the cage unlocks. This is Hellenism. It spreads like a virus. It travels on paved Roman roads, lying on the floor of a world that is still damp from its own creation. And then, a breath. It marches with the bronze shields of Alexander's armies. It filters into the universities. It seeps into the early church. By the time European translators sit at heavy wooden desks in the 16th century, the battle is already lost. They look at the ancient Hebrew texts. They read the story of Genesis. They bring their Greek worldview to a Jewish manuscript, and they mistranslate the human condition. They take a gritty, dirt-bound Hebrew concept and filter it through Athenian marble. They turn a breathing organism into a haunted house. The biblical soul is not an immortal ghost trapped in a biological cage. It is the dust of the earth animated by the breath of God. To the Greek mind, matter is a burden. To the Hebrew mind, matter is a masterpiece. To the Greek mind, you have a soul. To the Hebrew mind, you are a soul. The collision of these two worlds changed the vocabulary of modern faith. The early church fathers read Greek philosophy. They admired the logic. They wove Plato's dualism into theology until the seams disappeared. The physical world was downgraded. The spiritual world was elevated. Centuries pass. We write hymns about flying away to heaven. We print bumper stickers about leaving this world behind. The Creator bends low. He leans over the lifeless dirt, and he exhales. The chest rises. The eyes snap open. The mud breathes. Escaping the body becomes the ultimate goal of the believer. But the writers of the Old Testament knew nothing of this split. They did not divide a human into neat little compartments. They did not chop humanity into body, mind, and spirit like a butcher, carving meat on a wooden block. They saw a unified whole. They saw a living, breathing, eating, sweating creature. To see exactly what they saw, you have to leave the marble courtyards of Greece. You have to travel to a dry, cracked desert in ancient Judea, and you have to listen to the sound of a desperate animal looking for water. The sun beats down on the Judean wilderness, baking the limestone hills into a white-hot anvil. A deer stumbles through the dry brush, its ribs pressing hard against its skin. The animal is not looking for enlightenment. It is not contemplating the ethereal mysteries of the universe. It is looking for water, because the wadi has dried to cracked mud and its throat is coated in dust. It pants. Its tongue hangs heavy. You can hear the dry, raspy pull of air passing through its windpipe. A poet sits somewhere in this same arid landscape, watching the creature struggle. He is far from home. He is in exile, cut off from the temple. It is the most famous origin story in human history, recorded in the 2nd chapter of Genesis, and in traditional English translations, and his grief has become a physical sickness. Just one verse later, he will write that his tears have been his only food day and night. He is tasting his own salt. He picks up a pen and writes one of the most famous metaphors in the Hebrew Bible. As the deer pants for streams of water, so my soul pants for you, my God. My soul thirsts for God, for the living God. When we read those words today, sitting in comfortable rooms with padded chairs, we instantly spiritualize the text. We assume the psalmist is talking about a quiet, invisible longing inside his heart. We imagine a serene moment of private devotion, but that is not what the poet wrote. The image he chose is violent. It is biological. It is a creature on the edge of death, desperately gasping for the one physical substance that will keep its lungs working and its blood pumping. This is not a metaphor about a disembodied spirit floating toward heaven. It is a picture of visceral, bodily survival. The psalmist is not saying that the invisible, immortal part of him misses God. He is saying that his entire physical existence, his flesh, his bones, his breath, his appetite is craving the presence of the Creator the exact same way. A dying animal craves a river in a wasteland, to the Hebrew mind. So you cannot separate the spiritual hunger from the physical throat. The climax of that moment is rendered with a very specific, culturally loaded word. The text says, God breathed into his nostrils. They are bound together. The body is the vehicle of worship. But the English translation gives us the word soul and accidentally points us back to Plato's Greek philosophy. It hands us a ghost. The original language points us somewhere else entirely, because when you look at the actual Hebrew noun, sitting silently underneath the English word soul in this psalm, it does not mean an immortal spark of consciousness. It means something you can touch. The English translation hands us a ghost. The Hebrew text hands us anatomy. If you read the original scrolls of Psalm 42 or the creation account in Genesis 2, you will not find a Greek philosopher's definition of the afterlife. You will find the Hebrew noun nephesh. It appears over 750 times in the Old Testament. The early English translators struggled with it. They rendered it soul 475 times. They rendered it life 117 times. They rendered it person, mind, heart, and creature. But the ancient Israelites did not think in abstract concepts. They thought in physical realities. The literal, biological root of nephesh is the throat. It is the open gullet. It is the neck. It is the physical passageway where water descends and breath enters. It is the part of the body that breathes, eats, and swallows. By extension, it means appetite. It means craving. It means the vulnerable, desperate state of being a living organism that needs to consume things, the breath of life. And man became a living soul. Most people assume they know exactly what that word means, because it is outside itself to stay alive. If unlearning centuries of bad translation feels like waking up, you're exactly who this channel is for. Drop a thought in the comments and hit subscribe. Because every week, we strip away the cultural filters to see what the text actually says. So, look at Genesis chapter 2 again. God forms the dirt. God exhales. The breath enters the nostrils. And the text says, the mud becomes a living nephesh, a living throat, a breathing, hungering creature. God did not place a nephesh inside the dirt. The dirt became the nephesh when the breath hit the lungs. When the psalmist says, "My soul thirsts," he is literally saying, "My throat is parched. My appetite is starving. My entire physical being is violently craving life." The soul is not an immortal ghost, hiding inside your ribs. It is your whole biological existence, completely dependent on the breath of God. But this definition creates an immediate theological shockwave. If a nephesh is just a living, breathing, hungering physical creature, then humanity has a problem. Because according to the first chapter of Genesis, we are not the only ones who have one. Water crashes against the newly formed shores of an empty ocean. The earth is green, but the seas are silent and the skies are completely still, entirely baked into our vocabulary. We talk about saving souls, losing souls, and praying for departed souls. God speaks into the salt spray. The deep fractures into movement. Wet scales flash under the surface as fins cut through the current. Heavy, unpolluted air rushes past feathers as wings beat against the sky. The text of Genesis chapter 1 records that God commands the waters to swarm with living creatures, and the earth to bring forth livestock and crawling things. If you read this in English, you see the phrase, living creature. But if you roll open the Hebrew scroll, you see something that shatters the Greek myth of the afterlife entirely. The exact phrase written in Genesis 1:20 to describe the fish in the sea, and in verse 24 to describe the cattle on the land, is Nephesh Chaya, living souls. A bird in the sky is a nephesh. A fish in the ocean is a nephesh. A lion hunting in the tall grass is a nephesh. They possess the exact same biological identity, the exact same open throat, the exact same desperate reliance on the breath of God to survive. When English translators encountered the word nephesh applied to animals, their Greek theology created a massive problem. Animals were not supposed to have immortal, ethereal ghosts. So, the translators compromised. When the word applied to humans, they translated it soul. When the exact same word applied to animals, they translated it creature or thing. They hid the anatomy to protect the theology. The soul is not an exclusive spark of divinity reserved for humanity. When a ship goes down in the freezing ocean, the maritime distress call lists the exact number of souls on board. It is the shared reality of being a physical, breathing creature in God's world. Yes, humanity is uniquely made in the image of God. We are given a different vocation, a different relationship, a different authority over the dirt. But biologically, anthropologically, the text insists that we share the same fragility. As the deer panting for water, we share the same throat. We are organisms pulled from the dust, entirely dependent on the ruach, the breath of the Creator. Just to take our next step, you do not have a soul that is exempt from the rules of the physical universe. You are a soul made of mud and breath. But this realization forces a terrifying question about the end of the human story. If your soul is not a ghost waiting to what? Float away. If your soul is literally your breathing, hungering, physical body, then what exactly happens when the lungs finally stop working? The chest stops rising. The blood stops pumping. The room goes completely quiet. Skin turns cold. Muscles stiffen. The body becomes a heavy, motionless weight on the mattress. What happens to the soul? The Greek philosopher smiles. The prison door is open. The cage is unlocked. The ghost is finally free to fly away. The Hebrew prophet weeps. The breath is gone. The creature is dead. Read the ancient texts without the Hellenistic filter. Read Psalm 146. His breath goes forth. He returns to his earth.